What's the most disgusting thing you've seen someone do with no shame? Working customer service at Walmart, I once had a customer take off her very worn, very smelly shoes and put them on the counter looking for a refund because the insole in one of them was coming apart. It was a brand we hadn't even carried in 4 or 5 years. And I bet they refunded her too. My manager refunded a shit-filled blanket someone's kids had destroyed that we didn't even sell once. Sometimes it's easier to just get the loan out of the store. Though if someone's already refused the refund like they're supposed to, then yeah, you gotta back them up and fight the loan. It was my uncle's wedding day and his wife was just getting ready to walk down the aisle. One of the guests in the wife's family decided to stand up and show off his Johnson. There were kids there and he got kicked out trying to play it off as a joke. A guy walked into the restaurant I was working in, tried to open the door going to the storeroom and realized it wasn't a bathroom. He then proceeded to pee on the door right in front of people eating at the table near it, then walked out. Saw a guy jacking off on a city bus right near 3 kids. The dad of the kids went over and literally dragged the guy to the door and threw him out the exit while the bus was moving. He totally deserved it though. First that comes to mind, working at a casino, there was this one lady who smoked so much, she complained the servers weren't bringing her new ashtrays often enough. Started ashing on her tongue. One time I watched her put out a cigarette butt on the machine, then fucking eat it. I also work in a casino. I swear, the amount of people who piss themselves instead of using the restroom. It's insane. I remember one time there was this guy who had been sitting at his machine for so long, he just couldn't hold it in anymore. I rounded the corner right in time to see him stand up and immediately pull his wang out to pinch it shut and start bolting for the restroom a ways away. The pressure in his bladder must have been too much because it didn't stop the piss. In fact, the pinch just made for a smaller escape for said piss, giving it a lot more trajectory. As he was sprinting toward the bathroom, pissing 10+ feet in front of him, swaying side to side from the sprint, he must have gotten at least 20 to 30 machines and as many casino guests. It was insane. I don't know how I was so lucky to not have gotten pissed on, and just stood there in awe like WTF did I just witness. I saw this guy get up in the middle of a bus ride multiple times and switched seats. I noticed he smelled urine, and when he got off I noticed all the seats he sat on were moist/wet. He also took out a big tub of Vaseline during the ride and slathered his entire face and neck with it. I work with this guy who has a skin condition, not sure what it is. I don't think even he knows TBH because he's the type of person who will not go to the doctors. Anyway, fair enough, he's got a skin condition where it's flaky. But he scratches and he scratches and he scratches and his skin goes everywhere and he does not care. He's a delivery driver for the store I work at, and the other drivers will come in furious because the dashboard, the seats, the floor, everything is snowed in with flakes of skin. It's got to the point my manager has had to take him aside and say you need to clean up after yourself, and has given him a handheld vacuum which he still does not use. As a person who has to manage dandruff, this is my worst fear. My dandruff is controllable, but I hate when I can see it on my collar, or the back of my fabric office chair. I couldn't imagine it being all over my dashboard. Smoke electrical tape, the black plastic stuff. Rolled a small cigarette-sized tube and 2 guys smoked it, lit it, blew out the flame, and inhaled over and over. They rolled a giant cone right after. Me and another buddy told them that we couldn't believe they were smoking tape. They laughed and said they couldn't believe we weren't. Quite disgusting. Okay, so once I had a patient who was in the ICU after suffering a brain bleed, subarachnoid hemorrhage, from a ruptured cerebral aneurysm. She was a big smoker and obviously couldn't smoke in the hospital. She was also a big drinker, couldn't drink in the hospital, and the location of her aneurysm and therefore most of her brain dysfunction was in the frontal lobe area. Frontal lobe injury causes disinhibition and people just generally act totally nutty. So all these things combined made her totally delirious and wild. Anyway, her brain bleed had caused increased pressure in her brain, so she had a small drain tube in place that went through her skull into the inside of her brain to both monitor the pressure and allow cerebrospinal fluid to drain out to help offload the pressure while the swelling from the bleed was going down. One day we were called to the room by her nurse, who found that she had somehow chewed her ventricular drain in half and was attempting to smoke it. She had the tube draining from her brain inside her mouth. It was vile. Vile. This same woman also somehow managed to get out of her bed in the ICU and shit in the trash can. The brain is a mysterious thing. On a Boy Scout camping trip, we rolled up newspaper and smoked it by the fire. Fucking rancid. Another time, we dried dandelion leaves, crumbled them up, and rolled them into joints. It may have just been a placebo, but we swore that one actually gave us a buzz similar to cannabis. Teenagers are fucking stupid. When I was in high school, the bowl I used for smoking weed would collect resin as they naturally do, and when I ran out of weed, I would scrape the resin out of the bowl and pack it into the pipe and smoke it. This one time my buddy replaced the resin with crunched up Oreo cookie, and I was literally trying to take big hits of Oreo cookie. I couldn't figure out why he was laughing his ass off the whole time I was trying to smoke. Did some work at a train station a while ago. One morning the station master called me into the office, where they were reviewing the CCTV footage from the night before. Saw a woman walk up to the drinking fountain, hitch up her dress, straddle the fountain and proceed to wash her vagina right there in the fountain while the other commuters watched on. Haven't touched a public fountain since. Something about train stations. I watched someone walking down the train platform stop dead in their tracks, hop on, then proceed to shake an enormous log out their pant leg and kick it into the track/pit. It smeared on his shoe and not a single fuck was given. At my old job we used to have units, and a bathroom in the office on the units, generally used by everyone, except one guy, for just number one. We would cover if someone had to go off unit for number two. No problem. This was an unwritten rule. But there was this one evening shifter who would basically say fuck all of us. He was probably 5 feet 9 inches pushing 400 pounds. I think he would purposely go in and blow it up and every time would come out, leaving feces on the toilet seat. Every single time we had to go and tell him to go and clean the bathroom because he left it dirty. He would shrug it off until the manager of the unit went in and saw it and had to tell him. Never seen a healthcare worker so disgusting. I'd interviewed a guy and decided to hire him, but first, wanted to see how he drove, so I suggested lunch. I'd buy. Off we went, took his truck. Kept it reasonably clean, drove proficiently, decent table manners. Good representative for the company if it ever came to it. So I paid and we piled back into his truck, me, foreman, Another guy, and as we're getting back, 2-lane road country-ish, he swerved expressly to hit an armadillo and laughed like a hyena. We got back, my foreman glanced my way, and I shook my head imperceptibly. He nodded in agreement. So we told the guy we had a couple more people to interview. We didn't, and that was that. Occasionally still think back and wonder, why on earth? An inoffensive critter and he went out of his way to kill it. Not our kind of people. Reminds me of the time a guy in a truck swerved into my lane to hit a rabbit crossing the road. Pumped his fist in the air when he hit it too. Freaking psycho. I knew a girl in high school who said her mom would deliberately hit cats if they were on the road. Fuck you, Sam's mom. I guess I can one-up that. My ex-wife told me that when she was a kid, a kitten scratched her, so she threw it under some carpet and stomped it to death. Yeah, at that point I already had a kid with her, and the tidal waves of red flags culminated to that one defining moment. Much later, after we broke up, her cousin told me that she threw my cat out of a moving car. She told me he ran away out the door one day. The cat wouldn't even leave our porch and was the sweetest soul ever. My guess was that someone stole him, since she was so convincing and contrite that she left the door open. In retrospect, she also told me she hated that I am so affectionate to the cat and vice versa. Some people have the capacity to be unbelievably cruel and shamelessly destructive. Edit. I went looking for him as soon as I got home for days. There was a good-sized green Belton Creek behind us, so I started there and asked every person I saw if they've seen him. We lived in an apartment, so I was hopeful that somebody did. That was a lot of hopeful evenings after work while she knew the whole time. A drinking partner I once knew was very much a shock and awe kind of fella. He would come out with the most insane stuff but was incredibly funny and intelligent. My opinion changed on the last adjective when he went to the men's room and came out with one of the yellow urinal cakes that help keep the piss stench down. He put it in his mouth and ate it. To this day I don't know how he did it, but it was just really weird and disgusting.